There's just so much more to hear.
Download our podcasts at DubaiI1038.com.
Great debate thus far on the show, and many of you with split opinions. Top line question we're asking this morning: should parents be fined for taking their kids out of school during term time? Why are we asking this? The UAE Ministry of Education has issued a warning to parents about children missing school before the term ends. They sent tweets, and I quote, saying students should attend school until the end of the term, especially in the remaining time of the third semester, as being absent from classes can be, and I quote, detrimental to the students' achievements. Authorities say the academic year calendar was developed thoroughly and based on a scientific methodology to ensure maximum benefit to all students. That's what's happening here in the UAE, and with the summer holidays just around the corner, it is a concern for parents the world over. We've heard of incidents over in the United Kingdom where there are no shortage of cases over there, but equally as well, recent survey in Australia showed that 2/3 of parents were happy to pull their children out of school for a fortnight holiday. About 30% of parents said that they had taken a holiday of 1 to 2 weeks during terms, while a further 38% said they plan to in a survey by hotels combined. We are seeing cases over in Germany as well in the recent days. Strict rules also in place over there. Earlier this week, in fact, more than 20 families were caught by police taking children out of school to go on holiday. So one of the questions that has cropped up during conversation is taking children out during the term. Is that any different from taking children out a couple of days before the end of the term? If you've got a thought or an opinion on that, I'd love to hear from you. Talking of those thoughts and opinion, they've been pretty split throughout the entire morning. Let's try and get a flavour of some of those comments. Georgia Tolley's been monitoring the systems for us.
Have indeed. So we've got one in here from Emma saying, I believe you'll already have teachers on. Teachers are already divorced from the pressures of working in the real commercial world. They have ridiculous long holidays and inset days to train and carry out business planning, etc. What other businesses just shut down for this on a regular basis? The fact that they eat into their working timetable to start winding down and send this message to parents and children that there's not much going on and it's okay to leave early is a disgrace. Teachers need to get real as well and value the full academic timetable.
Thanks to all those that texted through. Two polar opinions here for you. This from one of our listeners saying, I think it sends the wrong message to children to allow them to miss school. I think it can affect how they feel about school and sends the message that school isn't important. Also, as an adult, they may continue this pattern and think it is okay to miss work. Interesting. So, did you miss school as a child, and therefore have you found that it's okay to miss work as a result of that? On the contrary to that, another opinion that's come through saying school fees in the UAE are some of the highest in the world. Parents choose to be here and therefore choose to pay them. So in the same token, they can choose to leave if they want. I know that we've used the United Kingdom as a point of reference for a number of the conversations that we've had this morning. In England, in fact, parents who take their children out of school without permission will be fined and can be prosecuted even if their child has high attendance. So I want to get a UK perspective now, and we are blessed to be joined by a former government advisor in the realms of education. He is a philanthropist, a writer and a teacher based in the United Kingdom. Revered education expert Dr. Stephen Curran joins us live on the line. Stephen, thanks so much indeed for your time this morning.
Good morning, Tom. Sorry, my voice is rather bad. I've had a bad cold, but I'm able to talk to you.
Not at all. You are loud and clear with us this morning. First question to me, and I appreciate that the systems, education systems, differ in the sense that the majority of children here in the UAE and Dubai and further afield are in the private system, the fee-paying system. Majority in the United Kingdom would be in the state system. But with the fine system, and as it has come in recent times in the UK, has the fining of parents taking children out of school during term time, has that worked?
Well, I think in some cases maybe it has deterred some parents, although there was a case back in 2016 where a parent challenged this in court and actually won because he was imposed with a £60 fine, which was then doubled to £120. And I think he'd taken his child to Florida to Disneyland, and but the difficulty with all of this really is, I mean, we have a system where obviously, you know, you're supposed to write to the head teacher to get permission, and really it's at the discretion of the head. Now, if the head then deems that you are missing regularly, they can impose this fine, or they can go down that line. And it's a bit like stick and carrot, isn't it? Really, you have to try to encourage parents not to take their children out, because I do agree, the children should be there for the whole time. But there are these pressures, as you've already talked about, the problem with airfares and costs of holidays going up. So there are pressures on the parents as well. And of course, it's easier to impose it perhaps in the state system, because after all, the state is paying for it. But I don't quite know how parents would react in the UAE if they're paying for it. And I can hear some of the reactions on the line, because I've heard one or two comments.
It's interesting because a number of the commentators, a number of the parents we've had on the show so far this morning, they see education as a service that they are paying for here, because it goes without saying that they are large fees, the school fees here in the UAE. Does that set a bad precedent, do you think, in terms of the way that you're approaching education in the first place?
Well, it is problematic, because in the UK, of course, we do have private schools, and they're very successful, many of them, and I don't think that system would operate here, because the parents would be outraged if they were charged for taking their children out, because they're paying fees. It's hard to know what the feelings would be of parents in the UAE, particularly when they're paying for it. I think they would be very angry, but I'm not quite sure how. In the end, if you become authoritarian, you get reactions, don't you? The most important way is to get people to cooperate. The law is a bad way of forcing people to do things in the end, because it produces resentment, and there are always going to be people who resist you. If you can persuade people, it's better. But I do understand the problem. We've had the problem in the UK, and that's why the government took action.
As a professional, you can probably tell us, to what extent is each day from the school calendar missed? To what extent does that damage a child's education? Obviously it's going to depend on age, but so let's just say if a child's over 10, how much does it damage them to miss a few days of school?
Well, if the school is well organised, and I would imagine that the schools that are involved in the UAE and here, if they're very well organised, they have a full curriculum for their children, and when children miss, they have to catch up, and that then affects other children, because the teacher has to somehow find a way of sorting that out and making sure the child is up to speed because they've missed something. It is difficult, I think, because you cannot have individually tailored lessons for children that miss school. They've got to find a way of catching up themselves, and I think that's very difficult. So, well-organised schools. I run a lot of tuition right now, but I was teaching in school. When children were absent, it always caused me a problem, because, I had to find a way of helping those children to catch up.
So ultimately, if a parent, and I might be one of them in the future, if I take my kids out of school so we can go skiing or something like that, I'm actually being very selfish.
Well, I wouldn't say you're being selfish. That's quite strong. But I do think you have to balance the needs that you have against your child's needs. And unfortunately, we have this situation, don't we, where airline companies and all the people in the holiday industry know that they can put their fees up and their charges up every time there's a holiday period. And that is really unfair. In a way, I would like to tackle that we didn't have that problem, and then parents wouldn't feel so pressured to, particularly if money is tight. We do understand that. And I think also you have to balance against, there are some children who are persistent offenders. Now, they're the ones you're really after. There are parents who take their children out for the slightest whim, and there's a few of those in every school. The vast majority of parents are very committed and will contact the head and debate it with the head teacher and discuss it. And then, of course, it's done in an amicable and amiable kind of way. Really what we're after is those few persistent offenders, and it's hard to kind of impose very harsh lines on everybody when in fact there are really only a few that breach those constantly.
Interesting you mentioned there about the economic pressures, Stephen, because that's obviously something that's mentioned a lot here. Somebody earlier mentioning the phrase, or using the phrase, that we are slaves to the airlines as expatriates here, certainly going into the summer months as well. But is that as much of a pressure over in the United Kingdom in terms of the airlines and the travel agencies cashing in?
I think it is, yes. I mean, I myself travelled to Pakistan last year, and when you go at the Easter period, the airlines know that everybody's travelling out, and they just put the fares up, and it is horrible, really, that they're kind of profiteering from that. I don't know whether or not that could be tackled at government level, where parents didn't feel those pressures, because I think fundamentally it's a financial pressure. Yeah. It's the fact that those parents are suddenly faced with extremely high fees. I remember as a child myself, every year my father and mother used to take my brother and I away, at the beginning of September, and the schools went back, and they used to get permission. And it was because the holidays were cheaper. They didn't want to pay those high prices, and we weren't very well off. So I never thought about it at the time, but I do remember going back to school and finding it a bit of a struggle, to be honest.
But with a very good tan all the same.
Yeah, well, in the end, yes. But, I did have to catch up, and it was difficult.
Stephen, got to leave it there. Really appreciate you getting up nice and early for us this morning over in the UK. Thanks so much indeed for taking our call.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for that, and all the best with your voice as well. Hope it gets better soon. Thanks very much indeed to Dr. Stephen Curran, UK-based philanthropist, writer, teacher and educational expert, and a former government advisor, joining us live on the line. Teachers say that parents should not be fined for term time holidays. Before you start texting in, this is a story that was generated over in the United Kingdom, but it is debate that has international precedence. Debate gained media attention recently as one father's refusal to pay his fine reached the Supreme Court. Only 37% of teachers support the policy of parents being fined for taking their children on term time holidays, according to a TES poll over in the United Kingdom recently. Teachers, parents and the Department of Education have been at odds over the issue since the introduction of the fining system, with a rise in flight and accommodation costs, levels of disruption and the educational value of a holiday all being discussed. Talking of discussion, let's get to more of your discussion points. HMG, thank you very much. HMJ, I should say. Complete and utter nonsense. I have no idea why my 5-year-old has to go to the KG until the 28th of June. When I asked the school to let her leave earlier than that, they rejected the request. Thanks for that.
I've just been thinking, everyone says that they're saving money by booking their airfares earlier, before the end of term, but has anyone actually calculated how much you're paying per day at the schools? And if you miss a week of school, how much money you're therefore wasting? And but they should balance that against the airfare.
Do it now.
That's my theory. I'll work it out. Meanwhile, Tariq from Sharjah says the argument that every day of school missed has a huge impact is nonsense. As long as the student's attendance is 95% or above, the arguments for weakened academic performance fall flat.
This one's from Ravi, who says, in this country the education is effectively used by expatriates, so government can't give this as a free service. Naturally, it becomes a business. Sahir says, morning all, it's simple, follow the rules set by the country. There is no debate for private or government schools. And another one here from another of our listeners, no name with this one, due to the fact that we are so far away from our families, I feel that we should have a bit of leeway when it comes to holidays. But as with everything, we should have a maximum limit of how many days we can take. Thanks for all of those. Let's get to the lines now, if we can. Let's go to Internet City, speak to Chris, joining us live on the line. Morning, Chris.
Good morning. Morning. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Would you feel comfortable taking children out of school earlier, or do we just have to button it until the end of the term?
Look, I think it's a very emotive topic, and secondly, it depends on perspective, because it'll be a differing opinion based on the age of the children. My children have grown up now, and they're in secondary school. They're at one of the non-for-profit schools in Dubai. Although it's a private school, it's one of the non-profit schools, older schools in Dubai, and they have a different perspective. They obviously do want the kids to stay at school till the end of term. When our kids were younger, when they're 5 years old, I get the person that said, they're colouring in and colouring between the lines, and what's the difference going to be if they leave for a week or so. But as the kids get older in the British system to GCSE or A levels, that extra week of school can make a huge amount of difference in the learning and the skills that they develop for their exams, which might only be in a year's time. And the teachers at that level are finding it incredibly difficult amongst the restrictions that are placed on them by the ministry to get through the English or British curriculum in the school term. And so missing out at that stage is quite important. But I think, some of your listeners have said, well, what difference is it going to make? They're not doing anything in the last week of school. There's also a chicken or egg scenario here. So if half the kids are missing, how much effort is the teacher expected to put into those children in that last week? Yet if all the kids are there, maybe the teacher would put a bit of extra effort in and give them something valuable, education.
I think you bring up a really interesting point here, Chris, and one that needs addressing, and I need to tread on eggshells here to a certain degree, but there seems to be this prevalence at the moment of we are seeing dwindling numbers in classes across the board at schools towards the end of the term as people take advantage of cheaper flights. That then puts a pressure not just on the teacher but also the teaching faculty of that school, because if they remain at full thrust teaching the remaining percentage of the class, are they therefore doing a disservice to those that aren't within the class?
Correct. And then if they're not teaching at full pace, then they're doing a disservice to those children whose parents have chosen to leave them there till the last day of school. I don't think it should really be a choice. Obviously, there are always exceptions, and during school term, there will be exceptions when children have qualified to represent their school or their country or something in a sporting event or in a cultural activity of some sort. And sometimes education is more than just maths and science as well. So there will be exceptions. But the argument of removing your kids from school a week early because they're towards the end of term because there's no value in that, well, how far back do you define the value? Is 1 week enough? And therefore, maybe 2 weeks next year is enough, and then 3 weeks, and then why not take them out the whole of the last term? Because they've written exams already, so why bother?
So the only way to stop that, and the only way to make it a sort of fair playing field, is surely to put a fine system or something similar in place for those that are considering taking their children out early.
Yeah, I don't know that fines are going to work. It's like our driving in Dubai. Fines don't seem to work because there's still bad drivers on the road that have clocked up thousands of dirhams worth of fines, and we still have bad driving. So I'm not sure that's a solution, but a solution needs to be sought. Yeah. And it's not to say exclude the parents from the dialogue.
Yeah.
You need to include the parents in the dialogue, but ultimately I think all parents want what's best for their children. And if they can see value educationally in their children staying at school to the last day of school, then perhaps they'll see it in a different light.
Chris, bless you. Thanks so much indeed for your thoughts this morning. Much appreciated.
No problem. Thank you.
Simon Calder is an English travel writer and broadcaster, and let's get his perspectives from a travel point of view about those escalating costs when it comes to travel via airlines or travel companies during school holidays.
This does not work. Anybody who takes their child out of school because it's convenient, because it saves them money, is disrupting life for other pupils and for teachers, and anybody who's involved in the education system, parents, children, teachers, everybody has to obey the rules. So it was very clear cut. Yeah. Of course, at the root of this is the fact that, as anyone knows who's on holiday at the moment, prices basically double, treble, quadruple during the school holidays. I hope this will spark a debate about what we do with the bigger picture. So, for example, individual areas could say, we're going to shift our holidays by a week or two. So that will give our parents the opportunity to take children out at a time when it's less expensive.
If the court had ruled the other way, would that have thrown the travel industry into chaos?
It would have. The travel industry would like to see smoother demand through the year. Most of the time it loses money. It only makes profits by doubling prices during school holidays. So they would have liked it. The education system would have thought, crikey, this means that if your child has perfect attendance, by the end of June in England and Wales, you can go to the school and say, tell you what, he or she has been here for the whole year. We're off now. Forget the last 3 or 4 weeks of the school year. So teachers, I think most of them will be breathing a sigh of relief, and head teachers particularly.
Simon Calder giving his thoughts there to Philip Schofield over in the United Kingdom. Let's go to Christina now, who says this. Good morning all. It's a hard subject, but each family has individual needs. But for sure my children get affected as they see one by one in their class leaving to go on holidays. They lose their motivation to learn. Why don't private school partner with airlines to reward parents with a discount for staying? Nice point, well made. Thank you very much indeed for that one. Christina says, at least until the last day of term. Thanks for that one, Christina. Right, our stato over there, Georgia Tolley, has been crunching the numbers. Tell me.
Okay, so I was trying to work out how much it costs per day at school. I've taken year one as a standard. I've taken an expensive school and a mediumly expensive school. For the expensive school, it's 436 dirhams per day. For the less expensive school, it's 266 dirhams per day, because you do 100. Last year we did 181 school days. So if you take 5 days, so 5 days off school, a week away, at the expensive school you are wasting 2,000 dirhams, and at the cheaper school you're wasting 1,300 dirhams. And that's a huge amount of money. That, for your child, your flight definitely will not be 2,000 dirhams cheaper just if you take them out of school a week earlier. So I think people are doing the maths wrong. I think not only are they being selfish because they're delaying their child's education and therefore delaying all the other kids in the class, but they're not doing the math.
Or maths. Let's go to line number 3 and speak to Farouk this morning. Morning, Farouk.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Very well, my friend. Give me your thoughts on this one.
Well, my short answer is that the children should stick to the school study days. 1 or 2 days for particular reason is okay, but I'm not in favor of, okay, they can go for 2 weeks or 10 days. But my point which I made by the text message was that I know that because after the exam, when there are 10, 15 days left, school do not do much. They don't teach much. So the children say we are just playing, there is no teaching. So they get the impression that they will not miss much if they go away. So I think there's a big responsibility on the schools and teachers also, that they do teach as normal, even after the exam, between the start of the holidays. So I think people will stop thinking why it's okay to go away. And then secondly, they have to create a discipline that whenever a child, for whatever reason, has to be absent, there should be a written application or some kind of form of formal permission from the school and record, not just when anybody says, okay, because as one of the caller earlier said, it is our loss because we are paying money, and if the children are away, they will definitely miss something. So I think, well, I'm not in favor of this. People can go later. Why everybody has to go on 12th or 27th or so-and-so. They can plan later, as another gentleman said. If the travel is spread over some period, maybe the flight cost will come down, or maybe, will be more reasonable, So we pay money, we pay fees to get the children educated. So let's stick to that. That is the purpose of getting the children educated.
Good point, well made, Farouk. Thank you very much indeed for that, Farouk giving us his thoughts. Let's get some more of those thoughts. This is another one that's just come through. What about parents who can't get leave during school holidays? Like pilots. Got a feel for the pilots.
You have indeed. Alison she hasn't said where she's from, but the teachers themselves have always told me they'll miss nothing in the last few days. So Alison reckons that it's all right for kids to leave school.
Brian Joel D'Souza, in my 11th and 12th grade, we were fined 1,000 rupees if we missed the first day of classes post the vacations. But my classmates were extra smart, and they used to get medical certificates stating valid reasons for their absence. Funny, but when it comes to money, the brains do start working? Thanks very much indeed for that one, Brian Joel D'Souza.
Charles says, giving parents fines for taking their children out of schools in the UAE will be an unfair practice. That can only work in a country where government invests in the education of school-aged children, which is not the situation here. Parents pay for high school fees, and they shouldn't be penalised for taking actions that could make them save money elsewhere.
I think you should get a discount on your flights if you don't have kids. It's the parents' choice to have kids, so they need to pay for them. Thank you, whoever sent that one in. Let's go to Lucy, who joins us from Safa now. Morning, Lucy.
Morning, hi.
What about this difficult subject? Is it okay to take kids out early?
Yes, I believe so. I don't personally, because I like to get all the value of my money. So what I pay for my school fees, I like to get every day included. But I don't judge any parent that chooses to take their children out early if they're paying for private school fees. I think rather than charging a fee or giving them a fine, I think parents could be rewarded for a certain percentage of being at the school.
Okay, so look at it the other way around. Rather than fining for not being there, credits for being there.
Exactly. And that would be more of an incentive to some parents, perhaps, to keep the children until the end of the calendar year and making sure that they finish their academic requirements. However, the last couple of weeks, in my experience at school, are probably a lot easier than the beginning of term, and the teachers are pretty tired by the end of the term also. I'm
so glad you said that, because we've had so many people coming in saying, no, it's full steam ahead until the end of the term. It's not. I've had kids in school here for the last 12 years. It's not. And show me one school that it is. Show me one teacher that hasn't, got an eye on their beach in Marbella.
Exactly. And a lot of them, and I'm friends with them, a lot of them leave literally the next day on a flight somewhere. So they're more than ready to go.
No, I'm glad you said that as well. There is this little sort of area of, and it's a phrase, is it not? That end of term feel. It's a phrase that we use in local colloquialism at the moment. That element of things get a little more relaxed towards the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely end of term syndrome. And I think that this education is not just at school. Education is also a responsibility of the parents. If you choose to fly to your home country to maximise the time with your family and friends overseas, you're still going to be educating them on certain things. You're probably going to take them on historic journeys to nice castles or to, cultural places in your own country, and everything's an education to children, not just within the schoolroom.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Luce. Thanks so much indeed for that one. Lucy and Safa giving us her thoughts, and thanks to all of... One thing I do love about this show is that, we are reliant on your comments and thoughts, and thank you very much indeed for that one. And keep them coming in. Every now and again, goes without saying that text messages come in with a little bit... it's when text predictor has gone a little bit crazy, isn't it?
Yes.
It's thrown in a word that should or shouldn't be there. There are those that they've just typed that one in and it's come the wrong way. There's one that's just arrived where I'm still trying to work out whether it should or shouldn't be there. It says, no, not missing out on a whole family of verbs. How will they cope?
It's the word verbs.
It's either a linguist out there, or I'm missing the point completely. But if it is a little sleight of hand and a misspell, then we will try and get that one sorted for you in a moment. I just want to do this one before we go. Keith, thank you very much to me. I might invite Keith in, actually, next week at some point to join me in my daily battle against Georgia Tolley.
Whoa, hang on a sec.
Keith says...
You're not allowed to bring in, your army.
Keith says, Georgia always sounds like a pro-authoritarian. Fair?
Yeah.
How often do you use long division or algebra? Don't let your schooling get in the way of your education. Children are often overschooled and creative learning has decreased substantially. The Finnish system is always a great reference point. They don't start schooling till 7, have substantially less extracurricular activities, and it still excels. Unfortunately, society is heading down a route where we are frowned upon for thinking and making our own decisions about many things, which we include education, health and other areas. Off to Finland with you.
I don't want to go to Finland. It's really cold up there.
Doesn't necessarily have to be. Just wrap up warm.
Incidentally, it is it's not a patriarchal society, Finland. Women rule there. And so maybe I would like it.
Nothing wrong with that. This one to, where don't they really? Let's get Sharon's thoughts here. Hi guys, I totally disagree with Laura on her point that the rest of the school misses out if some kids leave early. Given mine will be staying till the last day, I welcome any chance for him to experience a similar teacher-child ratio over the last few weeks and days. Surely this creates a better quality learning environment. More one-on-ones.
People are debating my maths because I reckon that basically if you had if you were going to one of the most expensive schools in Dubai, you saved yourself about 2,000 dirham per child per week. Bob says, I would love to see the school coordinating with parents to schedule mid-term training breaks that disrupt the learning process as much as leaving a day or two. In addition, my last checkpoint was 2,000 dirham difference per ticket for a family of 5, and that makes a massive impact. Mo says, my maths is wrong. I save at least 10k and I miss only 5 days when they're only playing.
This one came through a little earlier on as well, saying, I find it extremely annoying that our school has just announced the first day of school after the summer while we had to commit to the next academic year. Also financially, back in mid-March. Something is seriously wrong here. In Germany, you can check online for the school holidays all the way up until 2022. Well, that is efficient, isn't it?
That is efficient. Another anonymous...
In Germany, of all places.
In Germany. You'd never expect that, would you? Anonymous comment here saying fees is a sunk cost. However, we are doing savings in the future. Secondly, and this is coming up a lot, are kids actually doing any useful activities? And that supports Tom's theory that they don't do anything in the last week except for drama.
And watching videos, DVDs as they are
They
called.
watch DVDs in school.
We had Chris on a little earlier on. He was talking about the chicken or egg scenario. Thanks very much indeed for that one, Chris. We had Emma Banks on a little earlier on talking about teachers being, a bit separated from the pressures of working in the real commercial world as well. Thanks for that, Emma. And we had this one as well. No name with it, but a nice point saying, I think it's selfish from the parents' side to take out the kids early from school because it's more convenient to the parents with no consideration to the needs of the child and what is important and necessary to the child. So, Johnny, do you mind if we take you out of school a week early to put you on a plane to go on holiday? Well, actually, Mum, yeah, I do.
I want to learn Latin.
I'd actually like to stick around if that's all right. So if you don't mind, can you cancel all those plans? We'll do it a bit later in the year.
But at the end of the winter term in the UK, oh yeah, but you're naughty, we need to go to the break. I'll stop talking.
Thanks so much indeed to all of you that contributed to the show, including Saad, who got in touch with us a little earlier on.
When we compare it to UK or Germany, the state is taking care of education there. It's free, it's high standard, and it's standardized, so you don't have much difference between schools. But here you have a range of schools and everybody would like their child to go to the best school. Like in my case, I have 2 daughters, really young, grade 1 and KG 2. And I pay a fortune. I mean, I pay 90,000 a year. That's more than 30% of what I earn. So when I'm paying this much, and it's all to me, I mean, it's really commercial here. The schools are earning profit. It's all a private business. So it feels like I'm paying for a service for my kids, and I'm choosing where to pay and how much to pay. So in that case, this fine is not justifiable, in my opinion.
Thanks so much indeed to Saad. We had Farouk on a little earlier on as well. Most, if not all, schools do not teach much during the last 10 to 15 days, said Farouk. Let's get to the thoughts of Hytham as well, who says, why can't the parents simply get the curriculum and make it their responsibility to compensate for the child's absence? Wouldn't it be difficult for a parent to teach their child a week's worth of lost knowledge instead of imposing that responsibility on the overworked teacher? Oh, the poor overworked teachers, my bleeding heart. Let's go to Shroots, who's got a comment here from Mike.
Yeah, Mike says parents should be able to do whatever they want with their children as long as they do not expect the school or the teacher to make accommodations to allow students to make up work or expect teachers to create extra assignments for the student to complete while away from school.
I've got a solution. Get them out early, send them over to the UK and put them on one of them picking teams for the fruit harvest over in the UK because they can't find enough foreign pickers at the moment.
Yeah.
So get them doing that.
Strawberries or the raspberries, the bushes are pricklier.
Yeah, get them doing that.
Yeah.
Character building. Better than sat in front of a DVD for the last 7 days.
Even courgettes are quite prickly.
What have you got for me, GT?
Oh, Amin says every business wants to benefit from high demand, and you can't really blame the airlines because it's no exception. They will charge higher during peak periods. It's unfortunate that this falls most often during the school holidays. Sadly, parents are just going to get hit with the high fares.
We have been joined by Helen Farmer in studio, she of Dubai today. We've had fun over the last couple of hours.
I've heard. Please don't ask me my opinion on this one.
Oh, no. Go on, you've got an opinion because you're a mum.
I do have. Well, my daughter's starting school in September, so I'm not hit with the high school costs
Just don't bother.
just yet. Just don't bother.
Just don't send her.
Just homeschool.
Keep her out.
I can't. She can't learn from me. She'll just learn friends' quotes. That's my only specialist subject. Poor kid. But we are taking her out a little bit early this time. But that's on us. I don't think we should be fined. We're ultimately losing money by her not being there. We've paid up front. Oh, it's a really tricky one.
My son can't count. And he's nearly 3.5, so I've got to keep him in school for every single day I can. We found out yesterday he doesn't recognise numbers. Bit of a fundamental.
Oh dear.
Stay connected with the latest in business.
Download the ARN News Centre app now.
So a few last-minute text messages coming in for us this morning. Thanks so much indeed to you all. Continual assessment of all academic terms. Every day is exam day in real life. Thanks also to Lena, who got in touch with us via the ARN News app. And thanks to all those that have been talking about the topic. Why not have exams in the last weeks of school? My school back in South Africa did that towards my final year in school because of the dwindling numbers towards the end of the term. P.S. I was one of the pupils contributing to those dwindling numbers as well. Shroots, what have you picked up?
I've picked this one. It says the nursery just closed for a day to run PTA meetings. Give me a break. They cost a fortune. What does a Saturday morning cost them? Lazy.
There's another word there, but you're being very good not to read out. I'd just like to say that my school is currently on half term. My son is currently on half term. I have no idea why. No one else is on half term. Why he is on half term? Just costing me a fortune. It's costing me 436 dirhams a day when he's not at school. Not better. Christina says, me again. Once you enrol your children in a school, you sign a contract. Doesn't that cover leaving school early? Rules. But I am aware of the amount of screen time to kill time. Regulation is needed, so it's worth it to stay until the end of term. Thanks again, Christina.
George Tolley. Someone's asked for George.
You call me George. That's why. You did spell my name right. Thank you very much. I don't mind George. My dad calls me George.
George Tolley.
I think he always hoped for a son. Why are you laughing?
I love it. Bob, thanks very much indeed to you for yours. Have we done Bob yet?
I don't think so.
Have you done Bob?
I haven't done.
Have you done Bob?
Are you Bob?
I'm going to do Bob.
Do Bob.
Bob, thanks so much indeed. Final thought to you. I would love to see the school coordinating with parents to schedule mid-term training breaks that disrupt the learning process as much as leaving a day or two. In addition, my last checkpoint was 2,000 dirhams. Difference per ticket for a family of 5 makes a massive impact. It does, Bob. Thank you very much indeed for that one. Thanks to all of you for your comments. It's been a good one today. A good way to wrap up the week. I will say thank you very much indeed to you, Shruti, for putting that one together.
Thank you.
Hang on. Thanks so much to Milani for... Did she do much today or not? Yeah, she was okay. Milani back at house this morning. Thank you very much indeed to you, Milani. Thanks to you, GT.
Pleasure.
Now, off with you to go and look at pictures of lava, okay?
I just love the Hawaiian lava. It's only on a tiny bit of the island, so if you're planning a holiday, don't worry.
Off with Are you here? You're not here this next week, are you?
No, I'm not.
We will miss you.
Who we've got said? Sonal.
Tell everyone where you're going.
I'm going to Paris to watch the French Open.
Not jealous at all. You should go earlier. Thanks to all of you for your thoughts. We play it with the thoughts of Jenny. Till then, Tara.
Ultimately, it comes down to the individual child, doesn't it? So, at the end of the day, some children will cope with it really well. Some children will be able to keep up. I think what as parents we sometimes forget is not only are teachers working with your child, they're working with a whole team of children. And if when your child returns from that holiday, they need to spend extra time with them, helping them to catch up, that is to the detriment of other people's children as well. So there's that side of it. I think parents really need to think of school as a community that they're part of.
There's just so much more to hear.
Download our podcasts at DubaiEye1038.com.